Alright, in this problem we have the limit as x approaches 0 of 1 over 5x times sine of x. Take note that it's a two-sided limit. There's no superscript of a plus or minus here, so that means we've got to check both the left and right hand side when we evaluate this limit. As with any algebraic limit, 99% of the time you're just going to plug in the value of x we're given into the limit. And when I do, I get 1 over 5 times 0, well, anything times 0 is 0. So 5 times 0 times sine of 0, that's all just 0. This gives me a special form I like to call non-zero over 0, in which case my answer is either infinity, negative infinity, or does not exist, and it's up to us to determine which. The way we're going to do this is picking our favorite number slightly larger than 0 and slightly less than 0, because after all, this is a two-sided limit. So I'm going to pick a number slightly larger than 0 and a number slightly less than 0. That's negative 0.1. When I plug these in, all I need to do is ascertain the sign of this expression. If it's a positive result, that will indicate positive infinity. If it's a negative result, it will indicate negative infinity. If these two don't agree after I plug in that value, then the limit doesn't exist. So in this case, let's start by plugging in 0.1. If I asked you, what is 1 over 5 times 0.1 times sine of 0.1, you could grab a calculator, sure, and figure out whether that's positive or negative. Make sure you're in radian mode when you do that. But let's say you don't have a calculator at your disposal. How would I figure out the sign is positive or negative? So this is where I've brought the sine graph into play over here. Take note that when you plug in a very tiny positive x value, you get a very tiny positive y value on the sine curve. So here we have a tiny positive x value going in for sine, and as a result, I know this will be some positive value. I know that 0.1 times 5, that's also positive, so I have a positive here. Positive times positive is positive. There's a positive on top. So everything's positive. That's going to tell us that at least from the right-hand side, as x approaches from the right, the limit is going to be positive infinity. But how about from the left? What if we plug in negative 0.1? So if I plug in, let's do a different color. Let's do this in pink. If I plug in negative 0.1, I get 1 over 5 times negative 0.1 times sine of negative 0.1. Now the question is, will this be positive as well, or will it give us a negative infinity, therefore causing does not exist? Well, let's find out. Sine of negative 0.1, that's, again, this is where the sine graph is going to come in handy. Coming from on the left-hand side, if we plug in a very tiny negative number into sine, we get a very tiny negative number on sine. So this is actually a negative result. And we also have that 5 times negative 0.1 is also a negative result. So we have a negative times a negative. Two wrongs don't make a right, but two negatives make a positive. Positive over negative times a negative is positive over positive, which is going to give me positive infinity. And because these values agree, my overall answer is positive infinity. And that is the answer to this question.